support for Israel, and I'm joined now by Laura Blumenfeld, a former senior policy advisor to the US State Department on Israel-Palestine negotiations, so knows all about what's going on here. Laura, thank you very much for being with us. And I just wonder, first of all, are you surprised that this trip went ahead, given the political upheaval in the United States?
Well, I think Netanyahu was determined to make it happen. Look how many times these meetings were rescheduled. I mean, he's come with a very specific mission to try to rehabilitate Israel's image and his own on the world stage. I mean, the problem is that D.C. right now is in the grips of a three-ring circus of the absurd. I mean, he was upstaged last night by President Biden's speech, and every day there's a scheduling conflict for, almost everybody else involved.
Yeah, and you say rehabilitating his image, you mean internationally and in Israel, where his approval ratings are pretty low, aren't they?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a real difference between his soaring rhetoric yesterday and the grim stats and the reality back home in Israel. Israelis were disappointed by the speech. They say it was a speech for an American audience because they didn't hear the one thing they wanted to hear, which is, I accept responsibility for October 7th.
Yeah, and also no real talk of a ceasefire, no real talk of an imminent hostage deal. I mean, do you think there is anything going on? Well, we know there's stuff going on behind the scenes, but how close do you think we are to some sort of ceasefire deal?
Well, look, for all the criticisms, and everybody found something to hate in his speech yesterday, from this humanitarian aspect, there wasn't an acknowledgement of that. For those who might be more, hawkish and right-wing, they wanted to hear about how the war was, finishing up soon, and he didn't give any indication of that. But as far as the ceasefire, I am slightly more optimistic because politically, look, Netanyahu's his nickname has been Mr. Security all these years. And the criticism since October 7th is he's been more focused on his political security than Israel's military security. However, the Knesset, the Israeli parliament, is going on recess next week, which would give him a 3-month break from any kind of threat of bringing his government down, which means he could go for the ceasefire deal without his right-wing partners pulling from the coalition. In addition, you have President Biden, who's really focusing on this as a legacy issue for him now. He's freed up from campaigning. He can focus on the ceasefire deal. And finally, Hamas, I mean, they are the other folks at the end of this deal. They're feeling a lot of pressure militarily. That's been Netanyahu's strategy. Shoot now, talk later. He's claiming that it's working, and they're sort of breaking down and ready to go for it.
I mean, he was talking a little bit in his speech about the future and what happens after this war is over. But in effect, he was saying that Israel will remain in security control of Gaza. And that is the one thing that Antony Blinken certainly has been saying, that neither Hamas nor the Israelis should be in going forward, should be in security control of Gaza.
Yeah, I mean, Israelis often say you can never think and act and say the same thing at once, right? You can never align those two. So what he says doesn't necessarily mean what he's actually going to do. If he sounds too dovish, then his partners will accuse him of being too weak. If he sounds too hawkish, of course, the administration might pull back on the weapons, which is, at the end of the day, what he's here for. Aside from affirmation and validation, I mean, he wants everybody to acknowledge that he was right in his approach to Iran and its proxies, but he's got to come home packing some weapons to finish up the war, as he put it. So no, he does not want to reoccupy Gaza. He stated that very clearly. But for security at this point, I just don't think Israelis are ready to kind of outsource that to any kind of Palestinians, whether it's the PA, the Palestinian Authority, or Hamas. When I was at the State Department under President Obama, that's really where we hit a wall. He told us in the very beginning of those negotiations, I cannot cede security control, our eastern border actually with Jordan, to any kind of Palestinian Authority. We need to sit on that border. And the same thing is coming back here with Gaza.
Laura Blumenfeld, thank you very much indeed. Appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on the program.
Great to be here. Thank you.